Since 2016, people have been talking about a program or a operation, for lack of a better word, about a secret conspiracy / operation to save the United States of America from basically a battle against the most evil cabal on the planet that's ever walked the earth, right? And it's been affectionately called, or one way or the other has been called, Q, aka QAnon. What if I told you that this is probably one of the most elaborate hoaxes ever committed or pulled off and is 100% a Psy-Op? And in fact, it's such a Psy-Op that, if I'm being honest with you, it's not even very original. And I'm going to break that all down to you right now. If you just hang out with me the next, hang out with me for the next 45 minutes. We'll get into it. My name is Joseph. This is Enigma Daily. We're the sister channel of the Ancient Enigma Files. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a conspiracy theory that a lot of people have asked me about. A lot of people have wanted me to comment on and get involved in over the last couple of years. And I apologize for my key lights for some reason. They seem to be on acting super weird and almost blinding me right now. But those listening to me on audio, you won't notice a thing. So let's get into this, right? So I've often talked about how I am not a believer in the plan, how I don't believe in this scenario, this situation, right? I don't believe that there is some type of program or good guys that are secretly fighting in the shadows to try to, save America, right? And I have, but, want to be 100% transparent here. I have a lot of friends who do actually believe in that. And they are really good friends of mine and they're really good people. And we go back and forth a lot with it when I give them a hard time talking about it. But when I tell them that there is no such thing as this Q, this is all fake, this is all, this is all propaganda, or it's something to keep the people at bay, they don't believe me. So tonight, affectionately, I'm going to be debunking this thing. I am solo tonight. Jay's not with me and everybody else was busy. Let's check the chat real quick. What's going on, Robert? Thanks for hanging out with us again, brother. Always with us, Robert. My lights are a little bit extra bright tonight, and I actually don't know why. So a little power surge probably did something. I'll have to fix it later. So yeah, I might get a little sunburn as we go here. Anyways, guys, let's dig into this right now. I'm going to tell you why this is an op. And I'm going to tell you the facts that go behind it. And then I'm going to tell you the historical reference to, tie this together. Because you got to keep one thing in mind. These people that are, do not have our best interest at heart, they're not as clever as they think they are, or as people want to give them credit to be. They're ruthless, 100%. They are ruthless. And they're willing to do whatever it takes to win, but they're really at the core of it, not very smart. So that's why, if you haven't noticed lately, for the last year or so, even the conspiracy theories that they throw at you or their excuses are kind of lame, right? So anyways, let's get into this. So Q came on the scene around 2016, and the basic premises is that the United States of America has been involved in a, 50-year operation to save America, really, for the lack of a better word. And it's a group of generals that were supposedly doing all this type of stuff. And it was a group of generals that, were, at play, were, making everything go into play. And Donald Trump actually was supposed to be the guy that they handpicked to bring this in, right? And along the way, there was a list of things that were supposed to happen that, spoiler alert, did not happen. And one of the reasons why I don't enjoy covering conspiracy theories or talking about conspiracy theories in general is because a conspiracy theorist never gives up. They never surrender. There's always one more thing that they pull out, one more thing that they'll say happened, and they'll never admit defeat. And I'll tell you as we go. Number one, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be arrested, around October 2017. It was one of the very first Q drops that came out, strongly implied that Clinton, I've actually copied the notes here too, strongly implied that Clinton would be arrested imminently. Her passport flagged. There'd be, this would cause major riots. It was repeatedly teased as happening soon, but it never occurred. And so then, in conspiracy theory fashion, they said, oh, she was arrested and then she was sent down to Cuba, Guantanamo Bay, and that she was tried and executed, and what you see walking around is a clone. And that's what I'm talking about right there, right? When you're dealing with this, when you deal with these type of conspiracies that you go on, there's always an extra thing to it. It's almost like when, if you've ever seen, the last time I saw this happen was the Church of Latter-day Saints. I think it was somewhere out in Utah. They had predicted the end of the world. Zion was going to show up. Of course, it didn't happen. The preacher comes out and says, oh, at the last minute, God changed his mind. A, B, C, D, X, Y, and Z. And, our new date is, 8 years from now. We got to do better. And of course, they all believe, right? So the second thing that was supposed to happen with this Q thing was called the storm, right? It was supposed to be what they described as a mass cabal arrest, this mass arrest all around the world, right? And the central prophecy was that Trump and the military would round up, Democrats, Hollywood elites, globalists, deep state figures, Obama, Biden, Clinton, Soros, for public trials, executions, promised repeatedly from 2017 to 2020. Repeatedly. Never happened, right? Again, they'll say, okay, they use this term central casting. Oh, that person's been replaced. That person's X, Y, and Z, but then I'm being nice on this. They fall back on trust a plan, and, he's already been dealt with. This is Obama 2.0. This is Clinton 2.0. It's not true. Obama, during Trump's, I think it was, they were at an event together. I think it was somebody's funeral, maybe Carter's funeral. Obama and Trump were buddy, just laughing it up side by side, right? And this thing is not a real scenario where Obama is going to be arrested, right? He's not going to be arrested. It's not going to happen, right? Second one that I found that was very interesting was one of the more ludicrous ones that were in here was John F. Kennedy Jr. was supposed to return, right? There was widespread belief by Q and drops that, JFK Jr. faked his death and would reappear to endorse or join Trump, often tied to a specific date of rallies between 2018 and 2020. Obviously, he did not return. I have seen testimony from the Navy divers that his plane crash was so horrific that it actually cut his body in half. When they were retrieving his body, they could not find the lower half of his body, just the top half, right? And, I wouldn't put it past, Hillary Clinton or whatever who was running against him or whoever who was fighting for that nomination to take him out. But the fact that he faked his death and he was on his way back is just completely unrealistic. Sorry about that. This, like I said, this thing is just acting super crazy right here on my screen here. But anyways, we'll get right into it. The next one, right, was supposed to be, that's made it worse actually, fam. The next one here was supposed to be January 6, 2021 was going to be the trigger of the storm, right? That was when it was going to happen, right? They were going to trigger, the storm was going to jump off then. And, Trump was going to step out and, save the day, and everything was going to be, super good, right? Again, guys, yeah, it never happened, right? Trump never, he's still, January 6, 2021 came. That was the January 6 riots. We all know about that. Never happened. Capitol riots went the exact opposite. We all know that the FBI was involved, rounded up a bunch of people, kind of coaxed them to go into the Capitol building. And then on top of that, a lot of them got put in jail for a very, very long time, right? And then some of them, I don't know if people are still in jail, but some of them got pardoned 4 years later, right? Another one too was an alternative inauguration date of Trump. After January 20 failed, some shifted to March 4, 2021. Old constitutional date, never happened. Then March 20, never happened. All passed without incident, right? Then you move into this thing they call the Nunez memo or other declassifications around 2018, where it said that, Q claimed that the Nunez memo would expose massive deep state crimes and lead to immediate fallout. The memo was released because no such reckoning whatsoever, right? In fact, you actually had a source that you can believe was Julian Assange once said that in his WikiLeaks emails that 80% of the Congress was bought and paid for, and that if the truth ever came out, our government would cease to exist, right? And we all know they're involved in insider trading, they're involved in bribery, they own empty buildings. Have you ever? I used to drive through D.C. and I would see these massive buildings down there, these commercial buildings, right? And they were completely empty. And I used to say to myself, like, what are these buildings for? Well, now you know what they're for, because congressmen own those buildings. And they rent those buildings back to, fake, organizations within DC that never show up. It's a way for them to get bribes. For example, if I was a pharmaceutical company and I wanted you to pass a law, I can't give you money via your contribution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rent out all the office space in your building in like a 7-year lease and give you $20 million up front. That's how these guys get the money to do insider trading. It's well known. Right? It's well known. Drive through D.C., from one end of D.C. through other. Drive from Washington, D.C., heading west towards Virginia, and especially around 9 or 10 o'clock, you'll just see nothing but office buildings, especially when you get down around Georgetown, that are completely empty with the lights on, and there's no furniture in there. You can literally see the lights on, floors open, nothing in them, right? So they are corrupt. They are criminals. But Trump isn't going to do anything about him. Trump made, again, I voted for Trump 3 times. I think, again, the other person, she was a satanic witch, married to a Zionist, Jew. We would have been at war, 2 weeks later if she would have won. She openly mocked Jesus Christ, right? I actually think that Trump was going to lose to Biden the second time. Their internal polling showed it, and that's why they moved Biden out of the way. Because there is no left or there is no right. It's two sides of the same coin. You have to see that now. You have to recognize that now and see that now. These people don't have your interest at heart. I've been to their events. I've been to their parties. I hear how they talk. Yes, today's tax day, right? If you filed your taxes today and you got a return of $3,000, $4,000, $8,000, they think you're stupid. That's nothing to these people. That is nothing to these people. They're spending that in a day. You do not know how much money these guys are moving around and just how much they bounce back and forth, right? So there is no left or there is no right. So Trump, as this savior that he's going to come in, suspend Congress, suspend, the Senate, and enact martial law. He's not going to do it. And again, I'm not bashing him for one way or the other, right? I'll talk about him as we move along here. The show is not about him. I have some opinions about him, but he's not who you think he is. And again, he used to do this speech about like this snake or whatever, like this snake at these rallies. He was talking about himself. I've said that before. People laugh at me. I'm like, no, he's talking about himself when he says that, right? And so I don't really want to dig into too much politics, man, but go look that up, man. Trump's inauguration speech or his, campaign speeches talking about the snake poem, right? And now let me know if you think those words sound different today than they were back then, right? Also, it was tied into this imminent big events tied to specific dates, right? Again, when you're dealing with prophecy or you're dealing with anything, and a dead giveaway that something's a fake is they give a stone hard date for it. That's a dead giveaway that it's not true, right? Or it's not going to be true, right? The repeated, teases of October surprises, November 3rd, coded dates for arrest, disclosures, civil unrest, never happened. Not happening. It won't happen either, right? And again, also it leads to this whole thing about this broader, greater awakening outcomes, right? About this cabal and stuff like that, right? Now, let me tell you something about this, right? Every good lie has just enough true in it to make you believe it, right? To keep you questioning or to keep you, asking questions about it as you move along, right? There is a cabal running the planet, right? There is. Voting doesn't do anything, right? Again, I talked about this a little bit last night. United States of America is the largest, greatest superpower ever to live. And you're dealing with people at the top who will not give up power. Whatever's going on in the United States of America, you're not voting your way out of it. It's not going to happen. It's not, right? Again, they're not going to decide the greatest superpower on the planet. It's not going to come down to a county in Pennsylvania. They're not going to do anything to alter it, right? Because they don't care who wins. They own both sides, right? Also, too, they were talking about how Guantanamo Bay was supposed to be this holding area where everybody goes down there, and Trump singing his YMCA song and all this other stuff, and how it was a code for the Guantanamo prison center down in Cuba is, used to be a YMCA. It's not true. None of that's true, right? It's absolutely, positively not true whatsoever. But what is true is that our politicians are corrupt. They are evil. They are doing very satanic things, cult things, a lot of cult activity up there. I think some of them are demon possessed, personally, willingly demon possessed. I think some of them aren't even human, to be honest with you. I really believe that. But if you think that Trump is some superhero or some guy that they pick to come, I see people on internet or whatever, and people try to come at me hard. It doesn't really bother me. Where they're like, what do you know? Trump is the greatest president of my lifetime. That's because every president we've had has been complete trash. Period. Because they haven't been executing anything. JFK Jr., John F. Kennedy, he had some very, very good ideas, and they shot him and killed him for it, right? His vice president was in on it, right? So yeah, they'll tell you it was because he was a Catholic. No, it's because he wanted to do away with the CIA. He wouldn't let Israel have nukes. All this other stuff was going on, so they shot him. All this is not even hidden anymore. This is old news, actually, if you go and just do a touch of research or just do a little bit of looking, right? I don't think that, and again, I don't think that Trump is necessarily a bad person. I really don't. At the end of the day, some of my co-hosts and some of the people that I talk to, they think he can do, some think he can do no wrong. Some think that this Q thing is that I'm going to be eating my words here any day now. Some people think that he's the best thing since sliced bread. Some people hate him, and there's nothing he can do ever to make them think otherwise. Me, I look at him as an incredibly flawed individual who probably started out with good intentions, but somewhere along the way, his baser instincts kicked in. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. Trump's net worth as of today, as of April, since he's been in office for 13, 14 months or whatever, 15 months, he's went up $5 billion. Trump's worth has went up $5 billion, right? Now, all politicians do it when they get in there, but this makes the Joe Biden art scam look like, playing with Play-Doh, man. Trump's kids are on so many boards of directors that receive so much no-show money, they don't even have to go there, right? His kids are involved in companies that are building drones that are being used in Iran and all this other stuff. Jared Kushner is his son-in-law, is a total psychopath, sociopath, narcissistic. Like, he looks like he's a 110-pound serial killer is what he is, right? And he's made billions during Trump's both office visits, right? Trump also has again, it's not his fault. Trump actually has a neuro disorder called megalomania, right? And it actually, and if you go look this up, it's just an actual, you should pity him for a little bit about this, right? But once I tell you about it, you should go look it up on your own and look into it. It'll explain some of his behavior. Now, what a megalomania will do is that he subconsciously, or kind of via like a Tourette syndrome, inserts himself into every scenario that he talks about. It's actually psychologically, supposedly deep-rooted in major insecurity, right? You can go look it up. But that's why Trump talks the way he does. And some people are like, oh, this guy is so arrogant. Actually, that's the one thing that I give him a little bit, like I give him a little pass on. It's not that he's so arrogant, is that he literally can't help it. So when he talks about something like, hey, look, hey, Trump, I made you a cheeseburger. He'll say, oh, this is an amazing cheeseburger. I love cheeseburgers. You should try this cheeseburger. You know what? I make them better. You know what I'm saying? But like, I wish I could make cheeseburgers like that, but this guy right here, he makes them pretty good, right? Every time he talks about something, he subconsciously adds himself into every scenario that he has, right? But that's actually the one thing I give him a pass for, because it's a neurological disorder, right? And so that's what it is. But he's also because of that, he is incredibly susceptible to praise, right? And he's even talked about how he can't help himself sometimes, that if somebody says something nice about him, even though they're a bad person, it makes him feel good and he gives them compliments back, right? That's why when he brings somebody in, like this president that we installed in Syria, who was, cutting off people's heads, for ISIS a few years before, Trump praised him, talked about how good he was, how tough he was, this, that, and the other. That's just how his mind works, right? So I give him a pass on that. But Trump right now has a fatal flaw of surrounding himself with the worst people. And at some point in time, you will be judged by the company you keep. I say that, right? And then, of course, the Q heads will try to tell me that I'm stupid, or I'm mid IQ, or I'm a midwit, and I can't realize that Trump is putting these people on display, right? And that he wants the whole world to know who they are, right? How evil they are. For example, Howard Lutnick is our commerce secretary. He's the bald-headed guy that's always standing behind Trump, and he laughs every time they talk about the Island Boy. Well, he's in the Island Boy emails. He's been to the island himself. He actually had an office in the building, during 9/11. For some reason, he didn't go to work that day, and the building got hit, but all of his employees were in there, and they died, right? He says he was supposedly taking his kid to the first day of school in kindergarten, and I guess they don't start school till September 11th in New York or whatever. It's total lies, right? He was tipped off, didn't go in. I don't need to know Howard Lutnick to know that he's not a good dude, right? So I don't need to see him standing behind you chuckling every time somebody talks about these Q files or, these Island Boy files, right? I don't need that. That's stupid, right? Again, you go down the list of his first round appointees, right? Who he was in his first administration. Go look who he surrounds himself around right now. Right now, J.D. Vance will never be president. He won't. He's not. J.D. Vance used to be gay and date this dude named Peter Thiel, right? It's true. Look it up. When he was in Yale, Peter Thiel is his money man. He's the guy who owns Palantir. Palantir is part of the beast system. I talk about this all the time, right? They all have a money man. Trump's is I can't remember. It'll come to me in a second, man. But she owns the Dallas Mavericks down in Dallas. She bought it from Mark Cuban, right? Gave him $100 million. She's a Zionist, Israelist, satanic Jew, right? Period. So if you surround yourself with all these people, Lindsey Graham, for example, right? Lindsey Graham is a mean old lady. That's all he is, right? He's been who he is for the longest time. But he's Trump's number one golfing buddy, right? And people want to say, no, he wants everybody to see how much of a war hawk, or how bad Lindsey Graham actually is, so he can expose them. That's not true. Lindsey Graham's always telling him how great he is. That's why he's always around, right? And so that's his one downfall, right? That's his one Achilles heel. And unfortunately, it looks like he's fallen into that as well, right? And that plays into what I'm talking about on this Q things, right? So the Q stopped posting regularly around 2020, right? Came back a little bit around 2022. And then it became more of a whole, you know, people making up their own stuff, going this, that, the way, trying to push out all these, you know, all these signs or whatever. But it's all based on a lie. And it's all been done before. And I'm going to tell you why. All Q is, because, you know, I love history. All Q is a reboot of this operation called Operation Trust that took place from 1921 to 1926. It actually started several years after 1917 during the Bolshevik Revolution, right? Now, I'm going to give you some little quick details. I jotted on my notes over here. Operation Trust, also called The Trust, or wait for it, Trust, and just like all these people on the Q are always trust the plan, was a real Bolshevik counterintelligence Psy-Op run by the Soviet secret police GPU OGPU from roughly 1921 to 1926, right? The Bolshevik Revolution, 60 million Christians were killed in that time frame. 60 million, right? That's the real Holocaust that no one ever talks about. The Bolsheviks, 90% of the leadership were atheist Jews. The other 10%, I don't know what they were, but they weren't Christian. They were targeting Christians on purpose, right? That was what the whole plan from. And because of the desperation that the Soviet people were feeling, they feared a revolt. They feared the masses would storm the gates with pitchforks. So they created Operation Trust, right? Now, what it is talking about how they created it was literally, I'm going to read from the notes right here. The Bolsheviks created a fake underground organization called the Monarchist Union of Central Russia, or simply the Trust. The Q guys call them the White Hats, aka the good guys, right? And so they pose as a powerful anti-Bolshevik resistance network inside the USSR that was secretly working to overthrow the communist regime and restore the monarchy. They lured real opponents, both inside Russia and abroad, into contacting or joining the Trust. And when they did, they took them out. This allowed them to identify, monitor, infiltrate, and arrest or neutralize general dissenters. Exactly what's going on right now. These Q posts fly around on Telegram. So I was in the military. I was in naval intelligence, 9.5 years, TSSCI clearance. I've seen psychological operations, counterintelligence and intelligence operations, right? And you think they're going to post this on Telegram so a 45-year-old stay-at-home mom from Iowa can read it and say, hey, look, trust the plan. Trump's actually the good guy. I know it's hard right now. Everything's going to be okay. You know, any day now, the 10 days of darkness where supposedly they're going to black out. The emergency broadcasting system is going to go off. They're going to black out all the news, and they're just going to run trials, pre-recorded trials of down in Gitmo where people are found guilty and hung for treason. Give me a break. This allowed also the Trust fed false information to Western intelligence services and empire groups, making them waste resources on phantom plots, right? Same thing, right? Famous example was they tricked prominent white Russian general Alexander Kuptev, and others into believing a big resistance movement existed already, just like Q. Stay home. I know it's hard right now. Don't ignore everything that's being said on TV. It's all part of the plan. Everything's going to be okay. Trump's a good guy. The white hats are in control. We're fighting it, right? No. In short, it was a classic controlled opposition honeypot. It kept the rebels passive, giving the illusion that the something big was happening behind the scenes. Literally, I'm literally, you can't make this up. I'm quoting exactly what the white papers are for this operation, and it's the exact same thing that's going on right now. and that they should trust, again, literally in here, I highlighted this. Something big was happening behind the scenes, and that they should trust the plan. Everything these Q people say all the time is trust the plan, trust the plan. Rather than take real action against themselves, when the operation was wound down or exposed, many of the real opponents have been rounded up, right? Now, when I told you before, these people are not clever. They think you're stupid, right? They think you're dumb. They're not clever, right? And so all they did was recycle this communist, propaganda tool because it works, and they put it back into play. And I've noticed too that it actually targets a certain type of individual. People who really believe in this Q nonsense or this, this Psy-Op, they're really, really, really good people. They're really good people at heart. And the problem is that their mind cannot comprehend that they are in a situation that's out of their control, where evil is just running rampant. And it is. And so that's why I've deleted comments on my social medias before, where people would come into a post I made and say something, and I felt I was too aggressive to them. Because they believe what they're talking about, right? They believe the story. They believe that, something's happening behind the scenes with all their heart. But they're just naive, and they're just really good, innocent people inside, right? And again, with the same plan, how it connects to how this Q connects to the trust plan from the Bolshevik Revolution was everything was done by an anonymous insiders, right? The same thing with Q. Q claiming high-level military intelligence access dropped encrypted information about secret wars against the deep state and cabal. It's not happening. The deep state and cabal are real. They're feeding you this information so that you'll think that their plan they're executing is going to fail at the last minute because someone's going to jump out of the closet and put it down. It's not. Of course, they're the same thing. They're repeating this imminent, the storm, mass arrest, declassifications, great awakening, soon, blah, 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 blah. Trust the plan, stay patient, don't act rashly. The good guys, military, Trump, have it all under control. They don't, right? They do have it under control, but these aren't the people you think they are, right? And what the result is, many believers remained mobilized online, but largely passive in terms of independent organization, joining stuff. There's a lot of Telegram tough guys out there, right? But none of them are going up to DC. None of them are getting their cards. They won't do it. None of them are doing it. They learned during January 6th that I'm going to cheer with my cell phone, but I'm not going to go up there because I'm going to get handled if I do. And you will get handled. You will get handled, right? Now, this is a tried and true propaganda from, the 20s that they're recycling and they're putting to play right here, right? Now, eventually, we know it all fell apart. It fell apart because the evil guys on the inside started fighting, and it collapsed on its own, under its own weight. And it spread into other things and kind of never really recovered, right? But the persecution of Christians, the 60 million Christians that starved to death or were murdered or whatever because of Operation Trust, that eventually went away and stopped. Now, again, I don't want to be bombastic. We're not to the point in the United States of America where, they're rounding up people and they're starving to death or people are dying or anything like that. We're not at that position, right? Obviously, yet. But I can tell you right now that 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, you have to start taking people at face value when they tell you these things at face value. When Trump is talking and he's talking, bombastic things, he means what he says at the moment or at the time, right? It's not part of the plan, right? For example, this whole Iran war, right, is foolish. It's not our war. Mark Rubio came out again. He has a lot of baggage as well. But he's like, Israel, led us into this, right? And he's right, right? Because, and again, it's not, people want to talk about how Israel wants to expand greater Israel. That may be true, but that's not why we attacked Iran. We attacked Iran because Netanyahu, Bibi Satan Yahu, is on trial for corruption. He's going to be found guilty. He's going to be arrested, or he's going to flee to America. But they can't do anything while they're at war. That's why he went to Iran. As soon as they started talking about these ceasefires, that's why he went to Lebanon. He has to have a war so he doesn't get arrested and go to prison. It's that simple, right? Now, two things can be true at the same time. We talk about this all the time. Two things can be true at the same time. Yeah, they want to expand their property. Yeah, they hate they think they're the chosen people, and they think all this was promised to them, right? But I tell you right now, if the Jews wiped off all the Muslims on the planet, the Christians would be next. They'd come after us. They hate us more. The same thing. If the Muslims over there didn't have the Jews to fight, they're coming after Christians. It's that simple. And I know people say, no. There's Christian settlements over there in Syria and Lebanon and Jordan. And yeah, I know about those, right? As soon as the Jews were gone, they're next. It's that simple, right? Muslims and Judaism, Muslims and Jews that practice hardcore Muslim, not the average Muslim, I would say, and the average Jew doesn't really care. I would say that right now. I'm dealing with the extremist elements over there, and the extremists are the ones who always, talk the loudest, and they're the ones that are always doing the most, right? They don't have any love for Christians. They don't have any, desire to make peace with us or whatever. No, like the average Muslim doesn't care. Just wants to live his life. I think the average human being actually just doesn't care, wants to live his life, right? And so this whole thing about how we are over there fighting for Iran, so Iran can't have a nuke or what, that's not it. All of our enemies have nukes. All of them. North Korea, China, Russia, supposedly our enemy. They're really not. China's somewhat, but they're everybody's kind of economic enemy. Pakistan hates us. Nukes. They all have them, right? So, Iran having nukes doesn't affect the U.S. Affects Israel, but Israel hates us, and they got nukes, right? So this whole thing is a lie. And so when you see this whole Trump making all these wars over, the war's done, peace fire, war's back on, this, that, and the other, I believe what a lot of people believe, that it's just some type of market manipulation. He says on Friday the war's over, and then it starts again on Monday. So some kind of stock market thing or whatever. So yeah, but at the end of the day, he's not some mastermind. He's not some he's not Batman, like this guy who's doing all this stuff during the day, but at nighttime he goes in there. Trump has always been a New York Democrat. He always has been that, right? It's just that the party's shifted so much, right? That things got so crazy that Trump looks like he's a Republican, but he's always been a Democrat at heart, right? A moderate, right? More of a Bill Clinton type Democrat, right? And again, but I say that you should not be trusting any of these party members anymore, Democrats or Republicans, right? They're all disgusting people. They're all very, 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 not all of them. I'll take that back. There's about 50 or 60 of them up there that are pretty good. Congressmen. There's probably about 2 or 3 senators, right? Tim Burchell's a stand-up guy. Thomas Massey's a stand-up guy. A couple other people up there are stand-up guys, right? And girls. But on the majority, the average, they're trash. They're trash human beings, right? They only care about enriching themselves. And once they get there from, Kentucky or, Tennessee or Georgia, they really stop representing Tennessee, Kentucky, and Georgia, and they immediately get involved in these federal fights, right? Very rarely will you see a congressman from a state pushing the values of his current state when he gets there, right? This doesn't really happen. It does happen, but kind of rare. And again, I've met several of them. Some of them give me really creepy vibes. Some of them pretty nice. It's like I said, Tim Burchett, congressman out of Tennessee, is a good guy. I've never met Thomas Massey, but he seems like he's a stand-up guy, right? But there is no plan. Well, there is a plan. Don't get me wrong. There is a plan, but the plan is not what you think it is. The plan is exactly what it is right now. Is that getting in there, going to wars again, getting up this, military industrial complex, getting involved in it, moving forward, that's always been their plan, right? To do it. Now, Trump, again, you can go back and look at some of his old stuff talking about how forever wars are bad, going into Iraq was stupid. He's not wrong, but he just made the dumbest mistake of his life, right? Going into Iran. Again, trust the plan. The Straits of Hormuz, the United States of America only gets 5% of its oil from the Straits of Hormuz. So when your gas is $4 or $5 right now, that's the gas companies doing that to you. That oil was bought 3 months ago, actually. It doesn't show up and then 2 days later it gets to the gas pump. There's a huge surplus here, right? Huge. That oil was purchased months and months and months ago. We should not be seeing $6, $5, $8 gas. Not right now. If it keeps going on, possibly, but it shouldn't, right? Because again, only 5% of the oil of all the United States of America comes in from the Straits of Hormuz. That's it. It's not about that. It's market manipulation. It's, again, stressing you out, pushing you to your very limits is what they want to do. And I say this all the time, right? If Trump was this mastermind or this Q, figurehead was something that was going on since 2016, something would have happened by now. 10 years have passed. 10 years this has been going on. There would be one arrest, just one arrest. There's none, right? They say, oh, Trump came in and he secured the borders. No, he didn't. All he did was to say, okay, enforce the current laws. And they did, but he never arrested the guys who gave them permission to break the laws 4 years ago. That's a crime, right? No one's been arrested for that. Low-hanging fruit. Somali daycare fraud, 0 arrests. All the fraud is worse in California. 0 arrests. No arrests, right? Kash Patel, right, is our FBI director. He's dating an Israeli Mossad agent who thinks she's a country music singer, right? No arrests, right? Dan Bongino is a complete joke, right? Back on Rumble, nothing, right? Pam Bondi, who is actually really, really, really good friends with Jeb Bush, the whole entire Bush family. You think she was going to arrest anybody in there? No. Trump didn't fire her because she wasn't, chasing the Island Boy files. He fired her so he could bring somebody else in and restart the clock and investigate it for another year. No one's getting arrested. None of them. Nancy Pelosi is the world's greatest stock trader. No arrest. Her nephew is Gavin Newsom out of California. He's the second most corrupt politician out there, right? No arrest. Nancy Pelosi's father was a mob boss out of Baltimore. All Congress is organized crime. Trump's father was knee deep with organized crime. You didn't build buildings in New York City and get your concrete from the Teamsters without giving the mob their kickbacks. Every building Trump ever built, his father negotiated the concrete contracts for him because it was mob contracts. That's why Trump thinks and acts like he's a mobster. It's okay if you were his enemy or bad to him. He will respect you for it as long as you come in there and bend the knee and tell him how great it is. It's the Gambino lifestyle, right? And again, something would have happened by now. Anything would have happened by now, right? A lot of people don't know this. They talk about the jab they wanted everybody to take. That was Trump. Fauci's not arrested. What are y'all talking about? Oh, it's a bioweapon. Okay. Who's been arrested? Oh, it came out of Wuhan. I believe you. Oh, but you know what? You go and look at it. Who was funding it? We were. We were funding it. So yeah, of course. Oh, well, we can't do that. The taxpayers were paying for that over there. Oh, we knew about it, right? Fauci's not arrested. Nobody's been arrested, right? None, right? Not one single person has been arrested. In fact, only a handful of people have resigned. But you guys want to tell me that this is some major trust the plan, trust the plan, trust the plan. Trump's a good guy. Everything's going to be great. We got this. Everything's fine. So, Trump is, he's any minute now, they're going to flip a switch and martial law is going to happen. It's not going to happen, right? In fact, what I foresee is going to happen is Trump is actually about to get betrayed. Look, CNN put a poll out that Trump had 100% approval ratings amongst MAGA people over Iran. 100%. The only person who ever gets 100% polling data is Kim Jong-un in North Korea. And he believed it. Oh, CNN was bought by Larry Ellison, a Zionist Jew who's really good friends with Trump. And all of a sudden now CNN's talking nice about Trump. And he believes it, right? Hannity, same way on the Fox News. The other guy, Mark Levin, Zionist Jew, right? And they tell Trump how great he is. Trump's about to get an award from Israel, right? And they're telling him that he's their Messiah. He's their non-Jew Messiah. And so when you see Trump make these posts about pretending to be Jesus, which is complete blasphemy, he believes it. And people, you will never convince me otherwise that he doesn't, right? He knew what he did. On Easter, he makes that very rude post about, Allah Akbar, praise be to Allah, or something like that. Talking about open up the effing straits on Easter. He's dropping F-bombs on Easter. He's not a Christian. I've already proved he's not a Christian, right? And in fact, he's probably converted to Judaism around 2017 or 2019, actually. Same time his daughter did. So this guy has no compass, I would say, right? No moral compass between what's right and wrong. And he's surrounded himself with sycophants who tell him how great he is all the time. And anybody that pushes back, he literally screams at him at the top of his lungs, just goes crazy on him, right? And just, yells at him really hard. And he's admitted it, that sometimes he loses his voice because he screams at people in the White House, which is, that's fine. You want to be that type of CEO and scream, but just get some type of results, right? But that's what I'm talking about, fam. There is no results. And again, I feel that I'm being fairly respectable here when I have this conversation about how I respectively disagree with this QAnon Psy-Op. It's not. Why do you think, again, I got to say this with a little grain of salt. Why do you think you're special? Why do you think that you are a carpenter in Kansas and you're on Telegram every day talking about this is going on, that's going on, this is going on? You're not a player. I'm not a player anymore. People watching my shows, you're not players. You're not up in DC. You have no say of what's going on. Why do you think they're feeding you that information, right? You think it's to keep you happy or to give you hope or to say, hey, look, this, that, and the other? No, it's to keep you believing that any day now the light's going to flicker on, right? And all this, amazing things are going to happen, and just to keep you docile, just like they did back then. It's not going to happen. I actually had one of my good friends, hope he's watching. I think Trump's going to get impeached. It'll be a 50-50 split, and J.D. Vance is going to kick him out. J.D. Vance will be the tiebreaker, and Trump will get dropped. Right? He's done what he was put in there to do. Right? He's done it. And that was to get us back over there in the wars, get us back over there. They've classified the U.S. military casualty numbers over. That never happens. They classified it. So no one can tell about how many of them are getting smoked over there, right? You can't go, and again, this is what happens when you back a dog into a corner and then you let him off the leash, but he's not going rabid dog because Russia and China are showing him their satellite feeds, and that's why they're so accurate, right? That's why they're accurate. And the last president who tried to do anything in Iran was Jimmy Carter, and he was a one-term done. This is, they can't, and again, okay, another thing too, right? As I wrap it up here. Trump, this is his legacy, is down the drain. It's down the drain. This is supposed to be our 250th year anniversary. And on the Q boards, everybody talks about how, parades and all this other stuff. Won't happen. Won't happen. He did not clean up our food. There's still phosphates in our, fertilizer. I'm being nice about this. He didn't clean that up. He did the exact opposite. He gave the companies immunity who spray it so they can't be sued. He's pardoned more Ponzi scheme people. You can look this up. This is not even hard to look up. I just don't think people go and look or know what to look for. Go and look up Trump's pardon rate. Look at all the people he's pardoned. He's pardoned, and a lot of them are Jewish, and they're fleeing to Israel as soon as he lets them out, who were responsible for all these major, nasty, massive Ponzi schemes up in New York. Look at it, right? They're still spraying spider webs in our skies every now and then. It's not as bad down here in Florida, but I've been told on my other social platforms it's just as bad everywhere else. Still spraying them, right? I'm like, okay. Food's not clean. Air's not clean. Still, cost of living is through the roof. Groceries are expensive. Gas is through the roof. Military guys are dying again, right? Where for the whole entire, I don't know, the whole time he's been in, all it's been is about Israel, period. It's about Israel. The tariffs were a good idea, but the guy Howard Lutnick wrote the tariff bill, went before the Supreme Court. They shot it down. We had to pay it back. But Howard Lutnick, the guy who wrote the bill, put like all these major stock trades and shorts in play, and he made billions on it. The guy who wrote the bill for the tariffs knew it was going to get shot down, bet on it on Wall Street, and made billions. So when you see this insider trading stuff going on, that they talk about on X about, every time Trump does something, someone's putting trade. It's Lutnick. This is not a secret. It's Howard Lutnick via his sons are making billions off Trump, right? Doing insider trading. It's not a fact. He's in the E-files. He's hang out. He was next door neighbors with Jeffrey Epstein. The guy that stands behind Trump, bald-headed dude, last name is Lutnick, was next door neighbors with Epstein, island boy. Have pictures of him on the island together. And that's who Trump picks. Right? Melania comes out talking about how, this is need to come forward or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Only because her friend went through a nasty divorce and Trump's buddy was her husband. Trump had her deported. And then her husband went down to Brazil, kidnapped the kid and flew back to New York. This is Days of Our Lives drama, right? Melania, there's rumors going around that she's going to file for divorce from this cat, right? Because of all this E-file stuff going on, all this Island Boy stuff going on, right? This is his legacy right now. And again, you Q people, I know you guys get heated when I call you that, or you guys, try to tell me I'm too stupid to understand anything. Name one thing he's done for you. One. Name one thing he's done for you since 2016, and it's a zero. He's done nothing for you. Your life is not easier, period. You're still paying more in taxes. You're working just as hard, getting less in return, right? Their Social Security is still getting taxed. Make that make sense, right? You're taxing Social Security, right? All that stuff he said he was going to do, he didn't do, right? Oh, he closed the border. No, he didn't. He just enforced the laws. Let the border agents enforce the laws, right? But arrested no one who told them not to do it for 4 years. And that's a crime. No one. Zero, right? Arrests. Zero. So, but I'm a positive guy, right? I'm a positive guy. And I tell you what, I've spent the last 50 minutes down here trashing the Q plan. But however, guys, I know it's going to work out in the end. Not because of Donald Trump, but because of God. Two things that Trump's doing wrong. Number one, I don't know the scripture off the top of my head. If you do, throw it in the comments. God will not be mocked. Period. I've seen it time and time and time again. People making fun of Jesus and they get smoked real quickly after. The guy who did the transgender Olympic ceremony, First Supper. I don't know if you saw it. Over in France, he was a Jew. He got struck by lightning the next day. No one talks about that. That dude got struck by lightning, right? The next day after that aired, he got struck by lightning. Look it up. In Brazil, they have these carnivals down there. They did a carnival parade where they were mocking the crucifixion of Jesus. In Brazil, look this up. Out of nowhere, a crazy cyclone storm pulled up, and the guy that was on the cross, I think he was stuck there for like an hour in this storm. I think he died. I'm not lying. Floods washed away tons and tons of people, broke down roads. Go look it up. Trump mocking Jesus, which I think he was doing on 2 occasions, because I think his Jewish friends would think it would be funny. On Easter was sacrilegious, very disrespectful. And his tweet he sent out the other day, pretending to be Jesus with healing hands, healing a guy, right? And then he wanted to come back and say it was with the Red Cross. He's not even a good liar, right? That's strike 2, Donnie. You need to stop that, bro. You need to stop that. You need to come back around, man. And you're going to, and again, if you want to make your bed with certain individuals, a certain type of people, then don't complain. I talk about this all the time, where I used to be a rough guy back in the day, right? And I look back on my life and I'm like, man, thank God for having mercy on me, right? Because I was an idiot. I was a heathen. Right? And I look back now and I see people today acting a certain way, and they can't figure out why their life is so hard. You're making it hard because you're an idiot like I was, right? Act like a gangster. Don't get upset when the cops treat you like one. Period. Dress like a gangster. Talk like a gangster. Act like a gangster. Do gangster stuff, right? And then don't get mad and say it's racism or he's doing whatever when you get treated like a gangster. No, fools. We were acting that way. We brought that on ourselves, right? And as an older guy with a little bit of wisdom looking back, yeah, I was hard to deal with. I deserve that. Yeah, looking back, man, thank God it wasn't worse. Thank God I didn't get more, right? And so that's the thing right there that these people need to understand. At certain points, this guy is who he says he is. He means what he says he means. And when he tells you, I'm not a Christian, he's not one. Stop saying that he is. He's not, right? He talks about how America first. He's not America first anymore. It's America whenever we get around to it. It's 100% Israel first. 100%, right? And if you can't notice that right now, but of course the Q heads are like, yeah, because he's going to destroy them from within. Okay, thank you on that right there. And that's what I'm talking about when you deal with people who deal with conspiracies. There's no end to the tunnel with these guys, man. There's always one extra thing. Oh, he's a clone. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. So anyways, but I tell you what, guys, I still heart you, man. You're good people. And you know what? I'll still fight with you side by side. But like I say, I'm going to tell you, I told you so. When it jumps off, I told you this was going to happen, but I'll still fight with you because I love you guys. Anyways, everybody, keeping it under an hour, coming up on 59 minutes. I want to thank everybody for hanging out, man. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down there. You're not going to offend me, even if you disagree with me. Just throw it down there. This is the Enigma Daily. This is the sister channel of the Ancient Enigma Files. If you're more interested in my deep dive content, things like that, go over there. This is more my loosely based opinion stuff. Head on over there, check it out. Both Enigma Cast and the Enigma Daily are on every single major streaming platform on the planet. Go to wherever you like, Spotify, Spreaker, or whatever. Type in the Enigma Daily or Enigma Cast, and there I am. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow, I will probably go live again. I'm doing my main show at 9 o'clock, so I'll probably go live on the Enigma Daily in the afternoon. But thanks for hanging out. And you know what? If I'm wrong, I'll be the first to say I'm wrong. I'll see you later.
Subscribe now and turn on notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.